Hi there and welcome to this short webinar in which we're going to take a look at the attributes and cloning that are available within 2Code now. There's been a few updates. So I'm in design mode here on Chimp free code, and what I've done is I've dragged a character object into design mode, and when I click onto the character object you can see we have this table of attributes is produced over here on the left hand side of the window around here, and you can see it says character attributes at the top. So what are the most important parts within these character attributes? Well, that depends on what you're wanting to do really, but if I go to where it says see code now, you'll see down at the bottom here I've got this blue block called my sprite, and I'll just delete this other block here that's kind of in the way. If I pull my sprite on, I can get it to speak and say hi for 3 seconds, and when I click run, it turns out that that's the character. So my sprite isn't a fantastic name for them really, so let's change that name. So by going into design mode again and clicking onto the object or the character that I want to change or to look at, I can now click into the character attributes table, and I can type a name. So I'll type in here pirate girl. And when if I press enter or click elsewhere to commit that, if I click now to run, it still works, but I can see in the code here it's changed the character's name to pirate girl. So this is really useful because if I've got more than one character on the screen, I want to know in my code what am I dealing with. And if I've got lots of things down here called character 1, character 2, my sprite 1, my sprite 2, it's not very meaningful. So a really useful thing you can do with the children from a very early age is to get them to notice the names and to start using the character attribute names here. It just means that they know which thing they're dealing with on the screen when they're dragging blocks in to do their code and to bring their design to life. Other things that we can take a look at here in design mode, if I decided to make the character move, because you'll see here we've got attributes of movement, and if I click here to say let's have the character going right, when I click run, the pirate girl will be moving right from the word go. So that's initializing. It's what's happening as soon as we press go before any code happens to change anything. Also on here, I can decide whether the character is allowed off screen. Now, if I say yes, then what will happen when I click run is she'll disappear off the screen now. She'll shimmy off to the right hand side and she won't come back. Gone. She's allowed off the screen. Now, if I press stop and I change this, I can say no, and if I don't allow her off the screen, so start her off over there, when she gets to the edge she reappears at the other side. Okay, so that's what that attribute does. Scale is simply the size of the character, so you can make them larger or smaller, and the show or hide button is well, at the moment it's saying show, so I can say on here hide, and I'll click run, and we can just see the speech bubble moving, but we can't see the character because she's hidden. Okay, so that's what happens here, and you can see she's grayed out there. Let's show her again. The other thing that I can do is this is new, one of the changes that we made in 2Code, is we can allow the character to be draggable. So if we say yes, and I click run, let's make her shown, I click run, I can sort of move her around on the screen. So she's still moving right all the time because that's the movement we initialized her with. But I can just plonk her down somewhere else and she'll continue moving right from there. So that's the draggable attribute. Okay, now when we get, I can also clone her. So if I click onto the character and I click on clone, you can see now I've got 2 pirate girls. The first one is called Pirate Girl, but the second one is called My Sprite 1. So I'd need to change this as well. So I could call her, say, Pirate Girl 2, like so. And then when I'm in my code now, I can clearly see which Pirate Girl it is that I'm dealing with, and I can make her go up instead. So I click on run, we've got them doing things that we've controlled by the code, as well as doing things which we have initialized in by setting attributes in design mode. Okay, so what else can we do? Well, when we get onto Gibbon, so I'm now looking at an animal and a character in Gibbon mode, we've got extra bits available in the window here. We have the X and Y coordinates are available, and we also have the speed is available as well. And we'll actually no, I mean Gorilla now, but these things do become available in Gibbon. What's new in Gorilla is the friction, which would slow something down and make it stop. You use that in the football game. But what we also have here is the opportunity to change the movement type. So we can either have directional movement. So let's call, because this is most definitely a Sheltie dog by the look of it, so we'll call it Lassie. And if I go into CodeNow, I can drag Lassie in here. And you'll see, because I've given it directional movement, I can move the dog up, down, left or right. I can't change the angle and get it to move at, say, 45 degrees. So if you say move right, it'll just move right. Whereas if I go into design mode and change Lassie so that the movement type is angled, what I now have is the angle here, and I could say 45 degrees. Let's just click out of there, and if I run it now, you can see we've got that option to not just go vertically or horizontally with movement. So we access that by changing the movement, and it also changes the code. So Lassie's got a question mark now because we're not giving the conventional movement arrows, and instead what we need to do now is to set an angle, say set to 52, and we'd also need to give Lassie some speed as well, which we could give it the speed property by just say popping on like that. Now an interesting thing that you can do here is I've set this up in code, these attributes, and but I can also change them with code. So what I could say is when I click, when something happens, so for example, if I click onto Lassie, not with a key, let's get that correct, when clicked Lassie, what I want to do is I want Lassie to speed up. So we can say Lassie speed, and then let's add 1. So when I click run, Lassie sets off at the angle of 52 with a speed of 1. And I can see that by clicking into variable watch here. If I scroll down, we've got a section on Lassie, and we can see the X and Y coordinates changing. The angle is still 52 and the speed is 1. If I click Lassie, Lassie puts a bit of a sprint on, and we see we're now up to speed 4. And if I carry on doing that, I might end up with Lassie going so quick that I can't click on them anymore. We've got it up to speed 10 now. So what you've seen there is how we can set the attributes, the properties, well, attributes of the object by code, and also how we can attach it to an event and make those attributes respond. So other things that we could do, we could perhaps have something in here like a when key, and we could say that when we press our left arrow key, we might want to make Lassie's angle, maybe we'll subtract 5 from it. And what will happen now is every time I press the arrow, Lassie will go around a corner. So pressing the arrow now, and can you see how by doing that we're changing the angle that Lassie's going, and Lassie will face in different ways, so make them go a bit quicker. So this is the kind of thing that you'd be doing if you wanted to have a racing car game, for example, where you'd be changing the attribute of angle by using an arrow key, for example. Is there anything else that I could show you in design mode? Yes, there is. I've already done it, I think, haven't I? I've shown you the clone button here where we can create multiple Lassies, and they would all have the same attributes. So if I click run now, they're all going together, but only one of them is steerable because it's just the first Lassie. The other Lassies have different names. They're called MyAnimal1 and MyAnimal2. As they were cloned, they get that name. So let's stop that and come out of there. I think the last thing I wanted to show you is tags. So because these are the animal type of object which I've dragged in here, They've got an automatic tag of animal. What I could do though is I could call these all dogs, because I might have other types of animal in here. So I've got one there. I could add the tag here, and I just type and press enter or space. I think I have to press enter. Let's do that again. Dog. Yeah, you can't put a space, so you just press enter. So they have all now got the tag of being a dog as well, and I'll show you what I can do with that in a moment or two. If you teach year 5 and 6, you may be familiar with the splatty bug activity. And splatty bug activity was always set up by having lots of different bananas or bugs or whatever it is that you want to splat. I always give the children the opportunity to choose what they want to splat, and so you get all sorts of things. I hate football, so I'm going to splat footballs or whatever, and they can sort of take out their anger in a game on something. But what we did was we always used to have one banana here, and then, or I'd maybe have, say, 4 bananas. One would be going up, one would be going down, one would be going left, and one would be going right. And then I'd click the clone button to clone these bananas, and I'd drag them into different parts around the screen like so. But actually, there's another way you can do this now. Rather than cloning using the button here, what you can do is you can clone things in code. So let's take a quick look at that. My updated version of this. So in here, in design mode, you'll see that there's only one banana here. And yet when I run it, you can watch the bananas sort of being, oh, come on. You can see them kind of being spawned here, can't you? It's like a sci-fi movie or something. Did you see them all being created? I love that. I love it so much, I'm going to watch it again. Here we go. Look at them all go. Fantastic. Love it. How on earth, what's going on there? How does that all happen so that I can do that with a few lines of code rather than having to clone them all here, and then I've not got much flexibility with it? Well, let's take a look at the code and see. So, oh, my computer's going slow today at times. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got some tabs. Now I've got the game code is on this tab. I'm interested in this initialize tab here. So to begin with, I'm creating a number variable. Number of bananas equals 12, and that's how many bananas I want on the screen. What we do then is we have this repeat loop here, and we're saying repeat for however many bananas we want, in this case 12 times. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a clone of the banana, and we're going to change some of the attributes of it for speed and angle. So let's just delete a couple of these here, and I'll show you how we drag those blocks in to make them. So you can drag to the bin, or of course you can just click onto a chunk of code that you want to get rid of, in this case a command, and press delete. Oops, which usually seems to work for me actually, but today it isn't, so I'll drag it. Okay, so to make the clone, what we do is we're going to create a variable. So drag create variable block into the window here, into the nest. So the nest is being controlled by the repeat block, and it's going to repeat 12 times, and I want to create a clone. And it's going to pop up with some options here, so clone one of variable name. So I could give this a new name, but clone one, it's okay for me, and I want to clone banana, the object banana. If I run this now, I'll end up with 12 bananas all piled on top of each other and not moving anywhere. So what I need to do is to change these objects. Now, if I drag banana in there, it won't work, because what I'm not accessing that original object that I've got in design mode. So what I need to do is to change the variable that I've created. So we're going to change variable. I drop that in here, and I'm wanting to change my clone one, and then the question mark's popped up. So with that question mark, I want to change its angle. And I'm going to set it to, let's click into the green box here, I'm going to set it to a random number between 1 and 360. I also want to give it some speed. So again, I need to drag the change variable block in here, and it will say which variable do I want to change. So again, I want to change my clone 1, and when the question mark appears, I click and I select speed, which I'll have being set to, let's have a random number between 1 and 5. 10's going a bit too quick to click. And that's how I've done that. So now when I click run, it runs around the block there, as you can see, and creates them all. In fact, let's run it again, but in debugging mode. So actually, can I do it from there? Let's click slow, and I'm just going to click the debugger to restart it. So I've got my number of bananas, and you can watch it now going around the loop. It's created one, and it's changed its speed. It's now going around the loop again to create another banana. You saw that one being created. It's now going to go around the loop again another time until it reaches that banana variable 12. And you can watch those bananas being created and spawned off the first one, wherever it happens to be at the time. And that's how it gets built up. It's a nice tool, I think, to click slow and restart, just to watch this happening and to illustrate to the children so they can see how their code is creating these clones of bananas. Right, now another thing which I think is you might be interested in with this is in design mode. Can you see I've got this splat here, and my splat is it's an object. I've called it splat, but it's hidden at the beginning because I don't want to see the splat until we click on a banana. So how on earth do we make this happen? And what happens, the splat's here, so what happens if I click on a banana when it's over the moon? How does the splat get to the right place? Well, again, this is all using attributes. So in the code, let's go into the game window of the code here. If I can get my computer to work, it's going a bit slow today. So in game code, there's a chunk here where it all happens. And it happens in this when we click any banana section. So when we click a banana, we make a nice splatting sound. We hide the banana that's been clicked. We add a point on and we add 1 to keep count of the number of bananas we've splatted. This is where it happens. So the splat object, we're going to say that its x coordinate, its x attribute, we're going to set that to match the clicked bananas x attribute. And we're going to do the same for the y attribute, and then we're going to change it to show the splat for a short time, a quarter of a second, and then it's going to hide again. So if I just take one of these away now and show you how I can build that command up, because you may not be familiar with it. So in here, let's just drag on the splat, because it's that object that we're wanting to do, and we want it to happen here. It could happen up here, it could happen anywhere within the when clicked any banana, as long as it's before we show the banana. The sequence isn't really mattering that much there. You could ask children about that. Does it matter where I put it? Could I put it anywhere else? But what we're going to do is we're going to say the splat, and we want to select this purple block here. The purple blocks are attributes. The blue blocks at the top are actions. We want to set the purple splat's x attribute, and it's now saying, okay, set it to or add or whatever. We want to set it. Click in the green block, and it's showing me other objects. And I want to set it to the clicked bananas. And then from the clicked banana, I could choose the X attribute. Now, if I just click out of there to hide that, because some children do this as they're coding just by accident, wherever they see a question mark, click on the question mark, and it will bring back the options for you. So double checking, I want the splat X attribute to be set to the clicked bananas X attribute. Fantastic. So what that's going to do, these two commands are, as the splat is hidden, it's going to move it along and up and down the screen so it matches where we splatted that horrible banana to start with. So what I'm going to do, let's run and let's go into, let's speed it up a little bit now. And now I'm going to click slow now. So once I click on a banana, say here, can I click on it while it's checking? There, got it. So you can watch it now as it is moving things. So it's moved the X, it's moved the Y, and now it's just shown where it was, and it's going to hide it again in a moment or two. So that's how it works. Now I could, if I wanted to, have left the splat shown, so we could have seen it moving one stage at a time to the next bit, just to really illustrate the inner workings. In fact, let's do that. I think that's a really good idea to do that. So let's go here, and let's come down to the bottom, and we'll tell it that we want it to show. Right, and now let's just run, and hopefully you'll see that. So we're in slow motion, which means it's going to, so let's get that one there. Did I get it? I don't know if I got it. I better not click banana 1, because that's the one that's actually, I'm going to do banana 1 here. Interestingly, it's not letting me click on a banana yet because it's not finished cloning them. Because if you've watched the command here, it's repeating around this loop until it gets to 12 bananas before it's ever going to check, go into the game code section and check. So I'm just going to let it go fast for a moment. Right, now let's do it. So if I click here, you should see the, we should be able to see this move now one step at a time. So it's going to move its X, so it's gone, so it's moved its X, and it should be moving its Y eventually. So it's going to move along and then up or down in a moment. It moved along, and now it's going to move up or down, I hope. It might be struggling a bit because the other one's gone and I'm doing it in slow mode, but you can see it moving there. Okay, so what have we looked at today? And just to recap everything from the beginning, you have got in all of the different levels, you have got character. You've got this bit in design mode where you can drag an object onto the screen. Click onto an object and the attributes are available here. Change anything in this table and that will be how it is moving, or its size, or whether it's hidden or draggable or whatever when you click run at the start of the program. And as I showed you with the bananas here, you can get an awful lot happening with that. So in my first banana game, this was all done by having the initial attributes, and all the code I need to get the game working at a basic level is 2 lines of code. To when clicked any banana, clicked banana hide. Everything else was done by attributes in design mode. The attributes contain the clone button here, which will copy anything with all the attributes that you've already set onto it. As you progress through the school, you get through the progression rather, you have other attributes becoming available, such as the distinction between the movement type of angled and directional, which allows you to set angles and speed and more precise speeds and so on. And when you get to gorilla, you also get the attribute of friction, which will slow something down to a stop once it's started moving. Mentioned the clone button already, but you can clone things using code by using the create a variable option like we did here in Splatty Banana. Just dragging in the create variable and then choosing to select a clone, and then you can change things with those clones like I've done in this loop here to illustrate that. You can also, lastly, to sum up, you can also set attributes of objects to be equal to attributes of other objects, or we could say something like, if the clicked, I think there's an activity in Gibbon, isn't there, which you may do in year 3 or year 4 of the curriculum, where you're doing the knight on the castle, and in that case we're saying if the knight's X value is greater than 15, make something else happen. So we can use attributes to check other things against as well. Thanks ever so much for watching. Goodbye.